Friday, everybody, and welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean. Mac, it's week one. And we had this thought when, go ahead.
I was just saying it's week one.
Let's leave it in. Let's leave it in. We had this thought when the ACC added all these teams that we are going to have, especially in this non-conference world, like when teams are playing non-con games, we're going to have 70 billion games. And we do kind of have that today. So we're going to give some quick thoughts on some of the teams that are playing Group of Five or even FCS. We're going to really get into Clemson, Georgia, Miami, Florida, and Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt today, Eric McLean.
Let's go. Come on. And we will also, you might be asking, well, what about the Thursday games? What about the whatever? We'll recap those on Monday. Yes. You know, crazy schedules. I'm all over the world right now. KG is being kind enough to be very flexible with this recording. So we will talk about them on Monday's episode. We'll have everybody and even do a little bit of we're going to save Florida State and Boston College. We're going to do like a separate little mini episode kind of previewing that matchup. So we're all over the place, cranking it out, making it happen. And you know who else makes it happen, Kelly Gramlich, is our friends over at Ingles.
Always.
It is tailgate time. Go get all your stuff. I cannot wait. I did some of that chicken that I was telling you about earlier in the week to kind of prime me and get me ready for here. So really quickly, let's get to a message from our friends from Ingles, and then we're going to dive into all of these matchups. Let's go.
It's time to discover the convenience and time savings of contact-free pickup with Ingles Curbside. Just visit shop.ingles-markets.com or download the app. And your Ingles personal shopper gets to work with specialized training on how to select the freshest items for a pre-scheduled pickup. They'll even text you with updates. You pull up to a designated space and your personal shopper delivers your items right to your vehicle. Fresh, fast, and affordable. It's all in the bag. Ingles. Low prices. Love the savings.
Mac, we have three massive games that we need to get into. Every game is massive. We know that, people, because in college football, even with this 12-team playoff, one loss does mean a lot. And one win, every week means a lot. But let's start with Clemson, Georgia. We talked a lot of Clemson, Georgia on Wednesday. Go listen to that episode if you haven't, with Phil Maffa, Barrett Carter, Marcus Tate. We give some thoughts there. But we're going to really give our picks and our keys here. Number 14, Clemson plays number 1, Georgia, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So a neutral site, even though it is in the state of Georgia. Georgia is a 13.5-point favorite, noon on ABC. Mac and I will both be there. Mac
Come on.
In a professional capacity, and I will be there wearing orange. So I'll just say that. If you see me,
orange too. You best believe that. Don't you have to worry about that.
That's true. I'm a little scarred though, Mac, because the last Clemson Georgia game I attended, which is the last Clemson Georgia game a lot of Clemson fans attended, was the game in Charlotte that nobody ever wants to remember or recall ever again. But Mac, this is kind of crazy because this is Clemson's first game as a double-digit underdog in 12 years, dating back to September 22nd, 2012, a team you were on, Mac. That was a 14.5-point dog at Florida State. They covered, but did not win. That was 2012 is different. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I'm not sure what happened in the game. I think Florida State won.
2012.
I was thinking of 2014. I was thinking 2014.
Might have been, I'm thinking 2010. I don't know what happened in 2012. Let's do a quick Google search and figure it out now. Clemson, I know that was at Tallahassee.
Yeah, for sure.
Because EJ can always...
What happened?
First of all, they did not cover. What did you say the number was?
14.5.
They did not cover. So FSU scores 35 points in the second half to top Clemson. EJ Manuel, shout out EJ Manuel, throws for a career high 380 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. He also ran for 102 yards.
Wow. Shout out EJ. What a game.
We were number 10. FSU was number 4, so it was a massive game.
Yeah.
49-37 in Tallahassee.
I forgot it's coming back to me. It's coming back.
Probably why. That's why I forgot about it.
All right. Can we shout out our guy, EJ, though? We love EJ.
Shout out to EJ. Come on, 3. Lighten us up, big dog.
What a game.
It's probably his best game ever. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, probably was. So point is, it's been a while because neither us nor EJ are young. And if Georgia, this is the other stat I got this from our guy, Josh Pate. If Georgia wins on Saturday, it would be their 40th straight regular season win. No one has done that since the Oklahoma teams of the 1950s, Mac.
Wow. Wow.
That is pretty telling. So when you look at the spread, when you look at kind of these two teams, I understand why the spread is what it is. I think there has been kind of some doubt around Clemson over the last couple of years. When you look at a lot of the games that Clemson lost last year, losing at Duke versus, this matchup and this opponent. But I think the spread is the way it is because of who Georgia is and who Georgia has been over the last couple of years.
Yeah, a little bit of respect, a little bit of disrespect. I get it. They've been the standard, right? And that's what Clemson was, for so many years leading into, these last couple. And it's a little bit of a switch. And the switch really probably happened, in that game, in Charlotte that you were referencing, when kind of everything kind of took off for Georgia. So what a full circle moment for us to steal all that back and to restart kind of all of it. But listen, we talked about this game so much, KG, and really just some keys to reiterate, from me of what, maybe things I want to see or things that I think have to happen for Clemson to win the game. Number one, what I want to see is Clemson wide receivers being back to the Clemson wide receivers. And I think they have a real shot. I mean, you look at these guys, who they have, where they are health-wise right now. This is the healthiest Clemson receiving corps has been in 4 years. I mean, just quite frankly, when you look at that and you see how those guys are able to, make plays and get down the field, and the speed, I think, is there. And, it was funny. Somebody asked, Cade Klubnik the other day, what is it like having all these guys? And he just smiles and says it's the greatest thing ever, to have all of those weapons out there, including the great tight end. So that's probably, honestly, my number one thing that I want to see from Clemson is the elite playmaking ability from the wide receivers, if it's there, if it isn't. Secondly, and kind of goes hand in hand, as quarterback, how much has he grown? How much does he understand the offense? What is he looking at defensively? How he reacts, plays within the system, doesn't kind of, do his own thing and go rogue. And then thirdly, the turnovers, which you brought up a bunch. It just can't happen. And if it happens against a team like this, you'll lose by 60. I mean, you cannot give the ball to them. You have to, kick it to them. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing. Lastly, my only key for the game for this, and if Clemson does this, they will win the game, is controlling the line of scrimmage, which that's a big deal. And that's really hard to do. Anytime that you're in a playoff caliber game, offensively and defensively, again, I think that the roles have switched a little bit. The Jalen Carter and other big monster, I forget his name right now, they're not running through the doors for Georgia. I'm sure there's all kinds of talent on that defensive line, but it's different talent. And Clemson's offensive line has grown up. Those guys played. Marcus Tate played as a true freshman in that game. Those guys are now seniors and grown men. So seeing that, and then on the defensive side, this is the best offensive line by far. Clemson will see. How do they match up? How do they stack up? A lot of our guys have, NFL aspirations. This is an NFL offensive line. Let's see how you can do. Let's see what you can do.
The O-line is something I'm really curious about, Mac. Bringing in Coach Luke, getting kind of that new fresh blood in there. We heard Marcus Tate talk about it on Wednesday. Can they hold up? How good do they look? Can they give Cade some more time? That's a huge factor in this game. Of course, turnovers are going to be massive. We know that's big. When you look at Cade Klubnik, we've seen the quotes from Dabo Swinney. He's looked great in camp. He's got to do it in a game. Right. He struggled even more so on the road last year. Clemson went 3-3 on the road last year. In those games, Cade threw 5 touchdowns and 6 picks. You cannot do that on the road this year. I would feel better about this game if this game was being played in Death Valley. I think that's obvious, but I think specifically for Klubnik and the way that he has played on the road so far in his career. Now, this is technically a neutral site. We'll see how it looks when you're there.
I was going to say, do you have the neutral site games by chance? What do you got? You have Tennessee game,
the ACC championship. The ACC championship.
Yeah,
that would have been a good. And then Kentucky, he did play well in the bowl.
We'll take a neutral site. We'll take a neutral site.
So if this game feels more like a neutral site, that's probably good news for everybody involved.
Sure.
And Mac, I think the other thing too, and something you allude to with the wide receivers, explosive plays.
Yeah.
I think if you want to win this game, much less cover, you've got to have some explosive plays. This can't be a game where you're conservative, dink and dunk, and you're just going to kind of play a possession game, a ball control game, and beat Georgia. No one does that. You can't beat Georgia doing that. That's what they're
Yeah,
so good at. So
exactly.
that's a big key for me, Mac. I want to give you this little stat, though. These are two stats. This is from intern Nick, who's really done great work for us.
Oh, Nick.
And he, of course, took this super stat from our guy, legend Tim Bray. If Clemson beats Georgia, it'd be the first non-SEC program since at least 1980 to beat an SEC team in 3 consecutive games. South Carolina, Kentucky, and then if Clemson were to beat Georgia. And then here is the other stat that I like when it comes to picking this game, Mac. Dabo Swinney, as the head coach at Clemson, is 12-1 as an underdog of 5 or more points. So, and again, as we've said, Clemson has not been a double-digit underdog in a very, very long time. But when you're thinking of,
that we just talked about, wow.
yeah, for sure.
Wow.
But think of the Bama games where Clemson was maybe a 7-point dog or whatever, and they covered those types of situations.
Yeah.
So, all that being said, Mac, do you have a pick here?
I think that the number, it just feels a little bit too big for me, especially how good I think the Clemson defense is going to be. And let's be honest, there's going to be some question marks for Georgia in regards to, number one, who's available. We've heard all kinds of rumors about who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. And again, they lost 2 of their massive pieces, as pass catchers. And again, this is probably the most talented team in the entire country. I've heard from, a guy named Phil Savage through Mark Packer, look that up if you guys don't know who that is, that Georgia is far and away the most talented team he's ever seen. So that means something. What does it mean? I don't think quite 13.5 points against this team in Clemson, who I also think is extremely talented. So I'm taking Clemson, shocker, with the points here. Going to be fascinating to see. And here's the other kind of caveat. For Clemson to win, Clemson is going to have to play their A game. There's no question.
A+, probably.
Georgia has to play B- or lower, or you have to force them to play B- or lower. I don't necessarily think right now, again, it's game 1. We have no idea. I don't think Clemson, Georgia can both play their A games and Clemson win. I haven't seen that, in a couple of years. So, if this is the turning of it, great. I'll be ecstatic. I can't wait. But I just don't know in regards to talent level if they're on the same spectrum right now.
I think that's fair, Mac. I just, when you look at this from a Vegas perspective, I think Dabo thrives as an underdog. We know that. We know his numbers here, 12-1 as an underdog of 5+ more points. I think Clemson will cover, whether that's, a backdoor cover or something like that. I could see Georgia winning by 10, maybe even 13, and you've got a 13.5 point spread. From what we know, Mac, I see Georgia winning the game. Now, if, we thought Florida State would beat Georgia Tech, this is week 1. We really don't know. And this Clemson roster has all the potential in the world, but it's had a lot of potential the past couple of years as well, and it hasn't been able to execute. So prove us wrong. We'll see what happens, but I do think Clemson covers the number.
There we go. I like it. Great start. Great start.
Great start. Let's move on to our next game here, Mac. Number 19, Miami, 2.5 point favorite at Florida, 3:30 p.m. on ABC. Mac, there's probably no place, or the place I would never want to be in the world is the Swamp at 3:30 p.m. on August 31st or whatever it is. That sounds terrible. So good luck to everybody involved. Drink a lot of water, even you fans, please.
Maybe a little Gatorade. Get a little Gatorade.
Gatorade would probably be a good idea, Mac. I think this game is going to be so interesting because I just want to see the hype with Miami. I want to see how it looks. But I'll tell you this, Mac. I think Miami, and this is giving away things, I think Miami's going to win the game, but I don't think it's going to be pretty. I really don't. I think first game with all these new pieces, 16 new transfers, new quarterback, so many new pieces there. You're on the road. Like I said, hell on earth is probably the Swamp at 3:30 p.m. on August 31st. You've got the crowd noise. You're breaking in your helmet to player communication. I see this game being a bit uglier. What do you think?
Well, I think if that's the case, it probably plays in favor of Miami because if it's uglier and things aren't happening, you're probably going to run the ball and you're probably going to lean on your big talented offensive line that I think is exceptional. And your running back room that's loaded. Now, it'll be interesting to see how healthy is Mark Fletcher. There were some whispers about he may be ready, he might not be ready by the Florida game. But you feel great about Damian Martinez, a guy that's been there, done that at the highest level, now coming to you and again, he had a really good offensive line last year. So this is going to be, great for him. He's used to it. He understands how to be patient, when to hit the holes, things of that nature. And again, I think that favors Miami. And I think that's who they want to be. They want to be a team that lines up, punches you right in the face, and then we'll take some shots. Then we'll get the ball moving. And, how active can Cam be with his feet? I think will be really important. Again, in a hostile environment, let's not make our guys have to be perfect every single time, even though maybe they will be in pass pro, things of that nature. Xavier Restrepo is your best friend. And then how can we get some other guys like Sam Brown and George and guys like that involved, maybe over the top? So really excited for this game plan. I thought the number might be a little bigger, KG. I feel pretty confident about the 2.5 with Miami. I think they're going to win by a touchdown or more. And then you just look on the defensive side. How are they going to be able to affect the Gators and the thing that they want to do? Graham Mertz has seen a lot of ball, played a lot of ball, was really, really hyper talented as a freshman, and then kind of has had his ups and downs. But, how do they affect him and get him, off his spot is going to be fun to see as well. So I'm excited for this. I can't wait. But as you mentioned, that heat is going to be something serious, and those guys got to be ready all week, man. They have to be.
I think you've got to bother Graham Mertz because he has some weapons, right? And he can be a very accurate passer, but if you can get to him, I'm looking at, Reuben Bain, Maui Noah, all these monsters. I think that's going to really help your case. We talked about this with Clemson, Georgia. This may be a little bit of a cliche, but I think turnovers. When you're a favorite on the road in a really hostile environment, turnovers to me can be the ultimate game changer. For example, and I'm not calling Duke necessarily a hostile environment, but it was last year. Clemson at Duke last year, turnovers was the perfect example of why that game went crazy. And you can look at the examples all over the place. So that's going to be big. This is pretty crazy though, Mac. We know that Miami's issue last year was turnovers. TVD threw a lot of picks. Cam Ward's supposed to be better in that regard. Florida only forced, their secondary, Mac, only forced 3 picks last year. So
Need that
theoretically, you should be able to take care of the ball. And of course, I'm excited to see Miami with a mobile quarterback. It feels like it's been a minute since we've seen that. I feel like that could unlock a different level for the Canes.
Yeah. Probably, De'Aaron King was probably the last guy.
Yeah, De'Aaron King.
Again, this is a bigger version, probably a little bit quicker version, of that. And, the keys for me, I think number one, weather the storm. It's going to be loud. It's going to be exciting. If they get a big play on special teams or on offense, it's going to go nuts. If there is something that happens, a bad snap, a tackle for loss, whatever, that place is going to go nuts. Just stay calm. Just keep going, keep chipping away, and slowly but surely it'll get quiet and you can do your thing. So that's the biggest thing, because it can be overwhelming. I mean, I remember standing in Georgia. I remember standing, at Auburn and looking at these things, and Florida State, same thing. I mean, they're jacked up. Those fans are excited. That's their job, is to make you look around and be like, oh my gosh, here we go. I will never forget, KG. It was actually that 2012 game that we were just talking about. Now the memories are flooding back. Sam Cooper, shout out Sam Cooper, gets hurt in pregame warmups. So now I am the starter for kick return. And Kelly, I'm looking at my guy who has his shirt rolled up, abs out, permanent grill, and all I'm hearing is the chop going around. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is insane. Just level football. So you got to get past all of that. Yeah. And then the second key for me, just run the football. Got to be effective. If this offensive line is as good as I think, if these running backs are as good as I think, which, a little over here with Florida State, I think they're going to be really successful. So excited to see that. I'm taking the Canes. And again, I think it's by a touchdown, 10 points. I think they win pretty comfortably.
I love that inside or behind the scenes story, Mac. And that was back in your tight end days. Let's be clear.
Tight end days. Still wearing 88. Still wearing
tight
88.
Days. But
we had right pants on, so I couldn't, had to be careful.
Yeah. But like Cam Ward, for example, playing at Washington State. I mean, he's played in some tough environments.
Sure.
Oregon, whatever. But this might be a bit different, especially with the heat, Mac.
Yeah.
Different ball game. So
he's from Texas. You Texans like it hot.
He knows. I was in Texas last weekend and I almost died. I mean, it was that hot. Mac, I like Miami to cover. The total in this game, I'm bringing up this total because I really like it. 53.5. I would go under. I think this game is a
That's
lower
smart.
scoring affair, a little uglier. Per intern Nick, the total in the last 5 Miami Florida games has gone under in 4 of those games.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
like that. Miami also, though, we know this, and this is kind of their whole reputation right now. They're 1-5 straight up in their last 6 games versus the SEC. The one win, of course, was Texas A&M last year. They've got a lot to prove here. I think Florida's expectations are so low for this season that to me, this game is more important for Miami. I know Florida has a murderer's row schedule, but if Florida can make a bowl, then you're probably feeling pretty good. Miami's expectations are so high. I think this game is super important for Miami, but I'm going to take them to cover.
Yeah, and I think you know, are you able to push all those expectations and hype
Yeah,
to the side?
exactly. Exactly.
Maybe what we saw from Florida State. You kind of brought that up, and maybe SMU. The things that they felt
Yeah.
on the outside, which again we don't know, but certainly something to pay attention to.
Yeah. Okay. Our final game of the big 3 here, Mac, is Virginia Tech, the Hokies.
Hey,
Speaking of hype, we've seen a lot of Virginia Tech hype. We maybe have played into it. Virginia Tech is a 13.5-point favorite at Vanderbilt. This is a noon game on ESPN, so the same time as the Clemson Georgia game. Vandy has this new quarterback from New Mexico State who's very mobile. He rushed for nearly 1,000 yards last year, so that's going to be kind of a test for Virginia Tech. What I'm really excited for. I know we talk Kyron drones and the drone strike and all this stuff. The Virginia Tech defense excites me. I want to
yeah,
see this Virginia Tech defense go out there and set the tone early in this game, but also for this season. I think this Virginia Tech defense can be one of the old school hokey defenses that we remember. I expect the Virginia Tech defense to really show up here, Mac.
yeah, me too. And you bring up that quarterback. You got to be careful. Got to stay in your rush lanes. Have to stay disciplined. We can't just go, balls to the wall. I'm going to do my own thing to get this guy because he's going right where you left because you left your gap. And if we're in man to man, which they like to do, they like to kind of disguise and trust their corners. That can be big yards. So you have to pay attention there. But I just have to think APR, Fuga, my guy Peebles, like those guys are going to eat, and the other transfer defensive end. I just feel really confident about that defensive line, the depth of it. I mean, you've got a guy that's the second string defensive tackle that squatted 605 a billion times. Like that dude is a tank. He's a freak. So
I can't
you
even
feel really
comprehend
good.
that.
I can't either. I couldn't imagine putting 605 in a bar and trying to number one lift it off the rack, number two squat it
What do
10
you squat? Mac, what did you squat in your prime?
five something for one, not 610 for 10. I mean, that's crazy.
That's crazy, Mac. That's
Makes no
crazy.
sense. Makes no sense. I'm way taller than that guy, so my legs are
Mac
longer.
says
But
500 pounds like it's nothing. Okay, continue.
all right. So yeah, you're right. Excited to see that Dorian Strong. Again, excited to see what they do with him. I mean, coach kind of told us, hey, we're trying to put him at nickel. We want to move him around. He's that good of a player. We want him to impact, the game in a lot of different ways. So excited to see the game plan with him. And yeah, just the biggest thing for the defense, me this year, sacks were great, tackles for loss were great, against the run got better in certain games. Can they create more turnovers? Can we get some picks? Can we get our hands on the football? Can we score, defensively? I think that's kind of the last piece to get it back to that old school defense like you were talking about.
I love that, Mac. I think you're exactly right. And I like Virginia Tech to cover here. I like
Hmm.
Virginia Tech. I don't think
Hmm.
this environment will be that crazy. Honestly, Vanderbilt, they went 2-10 last year. I don't think they're going to be very good. You, the thing with Virginia Tech that worries me, Mac, a little bit is maybe, and you can speak to this more just being in those types of environment. And I know this environment won't be crazy, but with the expectations, just maybe too hyped up early, like trying to force some things, trying
Yeah.
to get it all in one play early. That's what
Mhm.
I would worry about for Virginia Tech. And I think they need to not force too much on offense, kind of ease into the game. That's the
Well,
way I
yeah.
see it.
And what you hope is that because here's the deal. I think if there was kind of how we're talking and everything that we're excited about, if Kyron was going into his first year and all this was happening, then I could see that. Because then there's pressure to be like, oh my gosh, I have to be this guy that
Yeah.
everyone thinks I can be. Because we saw it last year and he did it. And now it's just working on getting better. It's not working on proving yourself because we know who you are. It's how much better can you get. I hope that that's not an issue, but there is something to, the expectation and hype and being able to buy into it. To me, I mean, Virginia Tech feels maybe like half a step back, one step back from where Clemson was going into the 2011 year. Now we won the
Interesting.
league and went to the Orange Bowl, got smacked, but went to the Orange Bowl that year. I don't know if they're quite there yet, but it feels like they're right. Like because 2010 Clemson was terrible, so it's not
It
that.
was a bowl season, similar to Virginia Tech. It was like a 6-6 year. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So that's kind of where I think they are, and how much better can Kyron get? I think the things I want to see from him: sharper, quicker footwork, which will translate to the quick and intermediate passes, like getting it to the guys so they can run in space, things of that nature, not throwing them anchors behind them, having to make a crazy catch. And then just the continued commitment to the run. I mean, like their offensive line, will be interesting to see how much, can they come together and be a great unit. Love Bashal Tootin. And I mean, Kyron is an absolute weapon. I mean, that dude's a tank in the run game. So really to see all kind of those phases will be, kind of what you want to see in this game. I like the Hokies too with the points. Over unders 48.5, maybe.
Low.
I mean, if they explode, maybe take the over there, but maybe, Vegas is thinking Vanderbilt can't do much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I might take the over though. I think Virginia Tech's going to be firing. I think they
That's
come
just
out.
a low number. That's
It
a
is a
little low. I think I'd lean the over there.
Yeah.
Mac, I hate it when we agree on everything, but we do. We are taking Clemson to cover, Miami to cover, and Virginia Tech to cover in the Big Three. Before we get into a few other of these games and give you some thoughts, we do have to tell you about our new partner in Underdog
Hey,
Fantasy.
come on.
So use our code GMPOD, and there is a new deposit offer for Underdog Fantasy. Instead of $250 in bonus cash, it's now up to $1,000 in bonus cash. If you deposit $2,000, you get $1,000 in bonus cash. If you deposit $500, you get $250, etc. So this is a very exciting offer. Use it now so that you can get in as college football begins. This Friday, today is Fill It Up Friday with Underdog Fantasy. 10% deposit bonus all day for all users. Now is the time. And Mac, we are going to tweet out our full picks for Underdog Fantasy so you can follow along with those at Kelly Gramlich and at Eric McLean. But Mac, I know you were getting in some picks. I'm conservative. I go like 3 picks. I don't want all these factors here. And Mac's over here picking like 8 picks.
8 at a time.
Fantasy.
If it hits, you want it to pay off.
That's true. That's true.
If I go 7 out of 8, I lose it all. So it stinks. But some things that I was really keeping my eye on, Cade Klubnik, higher, lower than 0.5 rushing touchdown. So if he scores a rushing touchdown, you win. I just have to think that that's going to be a factor in this game. He's going to pull it. He's going to have a nice run. He likes his legs. I mean, I do too, especially in a game like this. You get everybody going on the dive out the back door. Here comes our quarterback for a touchdown. Kyron Drones, higher, lower than 1 touchdown. Come on. Let's go. He's going to score a touchdown on the ground. And then another one that I really, really like, Damian Martinez, over 85 rushing yards. I think they're pounding the rock. I think he's going to be a main pony in the stable. Those are 3 that I feel really good about. But like you said, we'll have more. They'll be on Twitter. You'll see our picks. And hopefully we're winning a bunch of cash money. Come on, Underdog.
Let's go. That's right, Mac. Okay. I'm going to transition us into the rest of our games with one of my picks, and we'll tweet out our picks here. I have Kyle McCord higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. All he has to do is throw 2 passing touchdowns against Ohio for Syracuse's home opener, 17.5-point favorite, 330 on ACCN. I love that pick. I think that, and we had Fran Brown on. Go listen to that preview. I know Syracuse fans are excited. He really wants to unleash Kyle McCord. He said he wants Kyle McCord to play like he's playing Little League. He wants him to play free. He wants him to use his legs. I like my favorite pick, I think, of all these other games, Mac, is Syracuse minus 17.5 against Ohio. That's a pretty low number.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to go back to Underdog really quick. I saw a higher, lower on there. Kyle McCord, higher, lower than 0.5 touchdowns rushing. Fran told us he wants him to run. And it was a 7 multiplier.
Ooh.
To me, is a really nice pick. Just
Interesting.
saying. Interesting. He didn't do it a ton at Ohio State at all. But Fran said, we're getting back to it. Just saying. You maybe only heard that here on Gramlich and Mac Lane. Take it what you want. Take it what you want.
Love it. I love that pick, Mac. And I do like Syracuse to cover there. When you look at all these other games, I think Georgia State, Georgia Tech is interesting. I think we need to see Georgia Tech not have a letdown. They did it. They did it, they actually did the reverse. They lost to Bowling Green and then beat Miami. But they've had the lack of consistency at times, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's Georgia State. You should win. But as we always say, great teams cover. Can you cover the number? Can you convince us, hey, we're 2-0 and we're for real? That's what I want to see from Georgia Tech.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. We'll be there to see it live in person. And again, numbers 20.5. Let's go to work. Let's make it happen. Let's do something, really consistent, really crazy. I'm going to back it up to Friday, Friday night, and look tonight here. Duke is welcoming Elon to the party. That's a 23.5 number. I can't wait to see this new regime for Duke.
Yeah.
Obviously, Coach
Malik
Manny
Murphy.
Diaz. Malik Murphy getting some play there. Of course, Jordan Poole, who I think is one of, the Jordan Moore, excuse me, one of the best wide receivers in the league. So feel really good about that. Excited to see him. And then Stanford TCU late night after dark, 10:30, tonight. TCU favored by 9.5. How can Stanford get going with that offense?
Like a lot.
It is a lot. Can they get Alec Amore involved?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to kind of see what does Stanford look like their first game in the ACC.
I don't know if I'm giving this one out. I like Syracuse as my pick from the other games, but I could see Stanford covering 9.5, especially
Sure.
TCU traveling out there, 10:30 kick. Stanford's at home. That's an interesting one. I want to keep my eyes on Stanford for the ACC after dark tonight,
That's
Mac.
right.
And then, as you've mentioned, and we'll get to that too, we're going to recap all these games on Monday. We're going to talk UNC, NC State, Wake, because they played last night. And then we're going to talk BC, Florida State. I think BC, Florida State is going to be a sneaky good game. There's a lot at stake for both programs, a lot at stake for Florida State, stake for Florida State. There you go. And so I'm excited for that game on Monday.
Yeah. And just one more I do want to touch on. Looking at Virginia, Richmond, Anthony Calandria getting the start.
Yeah, I like it.
We're in favor of that. And hopefully a new era, for these guys where they really have been able to have a full, true off season, go through camp, get ready here, choose your guy, and let's go full steam ahead. That number's 19. You might feel pretty confident about that. So we'll see. Anyway, so many games. Cannot wait to break them all down. Hopefully a lot of good things. All we'll be talking about. And we're happy
all good things.
on Monday. Everyone's excited. But appreciate you guys tuning in always. Big shout out to our partner Ingles and appreciate everything that they do for us and Underdog Fantasy as well. We continue to need your help, guys. Go over to YouTube, subscribe, jump on this train. Jump in the comments. Tell us what you think about some of these picks. Do you have one that you like? Do you see anything on Underdog Fantasy that maybe we missed that you think's a steal? Let's hammer it. Let's get home and make something happen there as well. So appreciate you guys tuning in always. Until next time, we'll see y'all.